this is part 2 of after we've made our meat sauce, what else you can use it for besides just pasta. The first segment here is going to be what I call zucchini boats or squash boats. We're actually going to do 2 different types, delicata and zucchini. So what you'll need is a pan with deep sides and a lid because we're going to steam them. You're going to need your cutting board, a knife, and 2 spoons, one to scoop out the seeds and one to put in your meat sauce. We're going to be putting this into an oven or air fryer, whichever you have. So you're going to need a pan for that. And then you're going to want to do some aluminum foil. And that's mostly because if you don't, then you're going to get cheese melted on it and it's going to be a pain to clean, and we don't want to have to clean too much. All right, since we've already made the meat sauce, this is a pretty simple one, not very many ingredients. You just need your meat sauce, some cheese, and some squash. Now I have a delicata and I've got zucchinis, so I can show you basically the same way of doing both of them. They just take a little longer. And I do like blending my cheeses together, so that's why I have mozzarella and cheddar. If you want to blend those, that's why I have the bowl out, make it easier. Also, if you want to microwave the meat sauce, you can put it in there. We'll talk more about the heating of the meat sauce in a little bit. So let's start processing the squash. So we're going to start with the delicata squash because it's going to take longer to cook because it's bigger. And the processing is going to be very similar, but for this one, I'm going to use the bigger knife because it's a tougher skin. You can do this with a regular size knife, and I'll show you how to do that with the zucchini. And what you want to do is you want to wash this down first with some soap and water, just get any of the stuff off the outside of the skin, because you're not peeling the skin, you are going to eat that. So it's pretty simple. You can see how it kind of curves. So you want to find it so that the curve is going this way. If it's going that way, it makes it harder to fill later. Now these have ridges, which makes it a lot easier to get that up and down. So once you have that set, you just chop off the ends. And you definitely want a sharp knife because these are a little hard. So now that you have that flattened, you can go ahead, like I said, find that curve again. And just kind of back and forth down the center. At this point, you want to hollow out all these seeds here. You don't want to eat any of them, just same deal as when you're making a jack-o'-lantern. So you're just going to put the spoon in, you're going to start scraping, getting the seeds and all that connective tissue. So it should look like that. And I'm going to do this over the garbage can so I don't get seeds all over. And while this starts cooking, that's when we'll process the zucchinis. Okay, so how we're going to cook these is going to be up to you. I've tried in the microwave and I never get the right consistency, so we're going to do steaming today. So you're going to put some water into the bottom of a deep dish pan that has a lid. Get it to go boiling. Put it on high and then way down. And we're going in with the delicata first because they're thicker. Just be careful not to burn your hands. Then you're going to put the lid on. Now, when we cook the stuff later, if you want to heat up the meat sauce when you put it into the oven, you want these a little underdone so they don't overcook. If you're going to heat up your meat sauce first, which you can do in a bowl or a saucepan, go ahead and get it to pretty much the right texture for you. If you like it harder, that's where you stop. If you like it softer, that's where you stop. And then from there, you're just going to be melting the cheese basically, so you don't have to worry about it cooking anymore. Okay, so these have been in there for 5 minutes, and something I forgot to mention are tongs, because boiling water, you don't want to get that out with your hand unless you have asbestos fingers, which I do not. So I'm going to squeeze, and that's still pretty hard, so I'm going to do another 2 minutes with just these. I'm going to turn the temperature up just a bit to get a little bit more of the steam going, and then they should be getting closer, and I'll put the zucchini in at that point. Now that you have your delicata squash going, we're going to work on the zucchinis. So same principle, you wash and use soap and water, dry them off, cut off the ends. You can see how much easier this goes through than the delicata squash. Once again, you're going to find the curve. You're going to just go in here, start making your way down. Now, since these ones are so much softer. You don't have to do the vertical like I did with the Delicata. And then seeds aren't as pronounced, but you're going to do the same thing. And what on these ones, since they are thinner, try to hold like this, or else you might get some tears in there. And just do it slowly, bit by bit. We're going to go all the way down. And then we'll show you when you're going to add these. And then after that, we're going to talk about how you're going to use your meat sauce. One last thing before we check on the Delicata squash. Since these are rounded, they kind of move around. So if you don't want to worry about them sliding when you're cooking and having the stuff fall out, you can do one of two things. You can take your knife, and if you're confident, you can make a teeny tiny sliver. Just barely taking the skin off. That's a little tricky. Even better if you have a peeler. Then you go ahead and just lightly. You don't want to go too deep. And either way, nice and stable. Okay, have the zucchini in. You just want to spread them out as best you can. This is why you want the bigger pot if you can do it. And then we're going to go ahead and go with the 5 minutes. Okay, so while we're waiting for the zucchini to finish up, we're going to make our cheese blend. And you're going to put some mozzarella into the bowl, however much you want. I'm just finishing the bag off here. You can always add more later, or you could put it aside, whichever. And then I want not as much of the cheddar, maybe about a 3-to-1 ratio. Just going to mix it up. And now we'll be ready to go in and put the boats together. Okay, the zucchini are done, but the Delicata are still pretty hard. So I'm going to take the zucchini out because I don't want them any floppier than that. So what I've done is I've sprayed down the pan with the tin foil, and I'm just going to put these on here. Drain out the water. That one was a little too soft. I check the Delicata squash. They're still pretty hard, so I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and I'm just going to let them sit in for quite a while, just because those are way too hard to eat right now. So the Delicata are finally where they're supposed to be, so it turned out to be about 20 minutes. So go ahead and aim for 20 minutes, check them after 15. It only took about 7 to 8 minutes for the zucchini, so factor that in. So now that we're done, we're going to put them onto the tray with the other zucchini and load up the boats. Okay, now that you have these all onto your pan, you're going to take your meat sauce. Now I've heated this. If you don't want to heat it beforehand, you can put it into the oven, and I'll give you the directions for that in a second. If you want to do it in the microwave, that's great. Maybe a minute and a half, so maybe 45 seconds, stir just so it doesn't splatter and it heats evenly. You want to get as close to the edges as you can, and you're going to want to try to make little wells in there if you can, just so it doesn't come out. A little bit easier on the zucchinis than on the Delicata. Just load that up. Then after we get all this done, we're going to go in and do the cheese. Okay, and then however much or as little cheese as you want. Some of it's going to go to the side. Pick it up if you want. If you want to use a spatula later, you don't have to worry about that. You'll just have extra gooey goodness. Once we're done with this, we're going to put it in the oven. Now, if you didn't preheat your meat, what you're going to do is set your oven to about 375 and cook for 10 to 15 minutes. Now, if you do that, you want to have your zucchini and your squash harder than what we have here, because it will cook more and it'll soften up more. So once you have that taken care of, we'll go into the oven. Since we've pre-cooked, we're only going to do that for about 3 minutes, and then that's going to melt the cheese. And in both cases, once the cheese is melted, you're going to switch over and you're going to broil. All right, after 3 minutes, you can see the cheese is pretty nice and melted. So now we're going to switch it over to broil, and you're going to start with 30 seconds and just keep going until it's your desired crispy toastiness. Okay, this was after 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the broil. Like I said, you want to watch it very carefully because that nice golden brown can go black real quick. So we're going to pull these out and we're going to plate them. So you can put them straight onto the plate if you want, but I have some extra meat sauce that I heated up. So I'm just going to put that at the bottom of the plate, move it around a bit, make it look pretty. Okay, you got a nice little bed going. Then, you want to grab your tongs, start with your Delicata squash, put that right in the center, and take your zucchinis, put one on each side. Look at all that melty goodness. Now if you want, you can put more of the meat sauce on the top too. We'll do that right now. Just a little lime, get you all the nice extra meatiness. And if you're so inclined, you can also sprinkle some Parmesan at this point. Okay, happy eating.